Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle, presented and brought to you by FanDuel. We appreciate you being here. I'm JR. That is Rajiv, as now we are getting to another transfer portal recap episode talking about Wisconsin. And I was really looking forward to this episode with Rajiv here because, number one, Rajiv knows his stuff. He's one of the best in the business out there. You go check out his podcast. I'll let him tell you about it in a second. And then number two, really interested to see what happens with Luke Fickell and the Badgers this season. I think it's one of the underrated talking points of the Big Ten. I think the way everything ended last season should give Wisconsin fans a whole lot of hope. They got some good financial investment to hopefully add some more talent to this team. And if Luke Fickell can keep a quarterback healthy, I'm very interested to see what Wisconsin can become. But Rajiv is healthy. His podcast is healthy. Rajiv, tell people where they can find your content at.
Yeah, so the podcast is the Bucky Report, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We go live Sunday evenings. We usually do something midweek as well. But yeah, we're just in the middle of the basketball season, of course, talking about the transfer portal. Spring football is only a couple months away, so that's always positive.
For sure. And basketball is about to heat up right now. I mean, we got Michigan, Nebraska coming up. Illinois is going to be facing, I think it's at Nebraska. Yeah, later in the week as well. I think they're facing off on Sunday. So a lot of good games. Michigan State, Indiana, and Purdue this week as well. So a lot of really good stuff to see on the basketball court. And of course, we'll talk about that here on the Big Ten Huddle. But in this episode, we're talking about Wisconsin. All right, Rajiv, I don't think there's any place other than where we can start than Colton Joseph, the transfer quarterback. Now, Luke Fickell has gotten transfer portal quarterbacks. Yet he got, 2 or 3 last season as well. I mean, it's not uncommon for Luke Fickell to go out there and get these guys. It's just the problem is that they get hurt, unfortunately, and Billy Edwards never really got an opportunity to shine. He's on his way to North Carolina now, so you say adios, amigo, whatever you want to say, and head on out of there. But now you got Colton Joseph. He had a really good game at the beginning of the season against Indiana. Should give some hope there. But overall, what's your thoughts on the addition, and what does Luke Fickell need from Colton Joseph this season?
Yeah, so very happy about the addition. Number one, primarily because it was our top quarterback target. Last year, our top quarterback target was Fernando Mendoza, who, and of course, won the Heisman Trophy. But it was identified early on that Colton Joseph was our guy. We had heard things pretty much right in the season ended that he was the guy that Wisconsin was going after. And initially we thought, well, are we actually going to be able to get our top target? I mean, he was certainly one of the better group of 5 quarterbacks that entered the portal. And, it was very quickly told us that there was mutual interest on both sides. And yeah, we were splashing the cash for him, which we've heard is upwards of $2 to $3 million, somewhere in that range. Investment was a big part of what was going on, and they needed to invest in the team. They did. They got their top quarterback. Now, of course, we brought in 3 consecutive years of transfer quarterbacks, right? Tanner Mordecai, Tyler Van Dyke, Billy Edwards. All of them got hurt. So if he gets hurt, then, that's obviously a catastrophe. But Colton Joseph has been healthy throughout his career. One of the reasons that we liked him, but ultimately it's how he fits into Jeff Grimes' system. So, there was a lot of talk last year about, is it time to get rid of Jeff Grimes? Should Fickell start with a third offensive coordinator? But for now, Grimes' system is going to stay. We never really got to see what his offense could do because of the quarterback injury. But Colton Joseph is first and foremost a massive dual threat quarterback. He threw for 2,600 yards last year, 21 touchdowns, but he ran for over 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. That, coupled with the type of offense Jeff Grimes wants to run, hopefully a far superior offensive line to the disaster of an offensive line we had last year. And it really just means that we have a guy that can make noise. We've seen a lot of these group of 5 quarterbacks do well. They come up into the higher conferences. They perform well. We expect Colton Joseph to be that guy, but I'm so excited that we got our primary target. And it was someone that we identified early, went after him, paid him what he needed. Florida schools were after him. We had Florida and Florida State that were vying for his services as well. The fact that we beat those guys out is a huge step. And it honestly makes the whole portal class look better, because when you get that guy at the top, the guy that everyone knows that we needed, there's something to be said about it. So yeah, I think Colton Joseph is a great addition. Obviously has to stay healthy, but he's not the cleanest passer of the ball. Like his straight passing ability is a little bit on the not so desirable side. His completion percentage wasn't great last year, but in our system, we should be able to find open receivers. And if Jeff Grimes can scheme some of these guys open, I think he'll do a lot better in the Big Ten. But yeah, the running ability is going to be something that's going to put a lot of fear into a lot of teams, which makes Badger fans pretty excited.
Yeah, I think you saw last season the running ability and what it can do for you. You had Carter Smith last season, utilizing his legs a whole lot, and that was really helpful for the team and their offense to be able to get going. Obviously, the trick plays and stuff like that
Mhm.
that helped to be able to score too. And really, if you just have a really sound defense and Colton Joseph is able to utilize his legs and at the same time take care of the football, I think to me that's the most important thing about him. If he can take care of the football, it's going to be huge. Honestly, it's not as big of a name of a transfer, but it does kind of remind me. And sorry, Badger fans, I don't think you'll like this comparison, but it's okay. It does kind of remind me of Mark Gronowski coming into Iowa. There,
Yeah,
you know,
we've heard that. We've heard that many times.
right? Like some poor quarterback play over the years. Obviously, for Wisconsin, it wasn't so much talent wise; it was more so injury wise.
Mhm.
But and then you get a guy coming in here, and we'll see what happens with him making this jump to Wisconsin, and see if Luke Fickell can utilize him the right way. So you mentioned the investment from the university, from the donors. Big reason why Luke Fickell was coming back this season is because they said, look, we're not investing enough for what our expectations are. We're going to put our money where our mouth is. We're going to invest more. And if you look at Wisconsin's transfer portal rankings, it does look like it on three. On three, they are the third team in the Big Ten. However, on 24/7, which 24/7 only adds in the players that are added to your roster. On three also takes into account players that have left your roster, but 24/7 only takes into account the players added to your roster, and that's down there at 12th in the Big Ten. So I'm very curious your thoughts on this, Rajiv. Do you feel like the investment was utilized correctly? Do you feel like the investment was enough for what you guys were expecting? Just give me your thoughts on the investment and then some of the additions that might make you say, yeah, we agree with the investment because we really like these additions.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think that 247's rankings are a bit off. I don't think we're the 12th ranked, transfer portal class. We're brought in 33 guys, just from a sheer numbers perspective. Obviously, that's a big deal. But yeah, look, the investment was there, and it started at the top, right? It started with immediately vying for Colton Joseph, but we got a lot of guys in here, and I think that they definitely prioritized positions that were necessary. Last year, for example, we were very thin on the defensive line, and they went out and they beefed up, and our defense was far superior last year, and we were able to frustrate a lot of teams on the defensive side of the ball, especially as the season progressed. And this year, they did the same thing. They found areas that were bad. Offensive line was one of them. They beefed up a lot there on the offensive line. Cornerback and the defensive backfield was a huge issue. We've got 4 cornerbacks, a couple with really good experience, so that's really good. And safety as well. So Marvin Burks is kind of one of the big headline names from Missouri. Had solid numbers, almost 50 tackles last year. I think Fred 49 tackles. So he's someone that can kind of solidify the safety position, because we lost Preston Zachman to Indiana, who was hurt all of last year. Surprise, surprise, another injury last year, which killed us. But the quarterback room, we got Bryce West, your guy from Ohio State, who's just more of a potential guy. We got Kai Bates and Javon Robinson from Oklahoma State. So yeah, there's a lot of Arizona State for Javon Robinson. But there is really good talent, and they beefed up there. And that's been huge. And also the running back position. We lost Dylan Jones to LSU. We brought in Abu Sama from Iowa State. A lot of production, 735 yards last year. So that just kind of showed that we were able to bring in starters. We're not just bringing in potential. We're bringing in guys that can get into that starting offense, the starting defense. And they clearly prioritized positions, but more than anything, they brought in good numbers. I mean, you're now adding depth, and because listen, the one thing that people have said often about Luke Fickell, and I've said it multiple times, is his recruiting classes have been pretty solid, especially the 24 and 25 class. So those guys now of coming of age, coupled with all the transfer portal depth and roster sort of beef that we brought in, I think that we're looking like we're in a pretty good shape. Also, our schedule's a lot easier next year, so people can begin to actually look at, how many wins can this team rack up? But yeah, look, they spent money out there. They brought in really good talent. We even got some receivers. That was one of the rooms that we were a little bit worried about. But there are a lot of guys on this team that we're happy about. Are there question marks? Sure, of course, there always is. But the biggest positions were filled, and the money looks like it has been spent. I mean, we were competing with really big schools. We were competing with like Florida schools and Texas schools, SEC schools, was for some of these guys. So the fact that we were able to get them in shows that the money was really spent and the investment is there. One of our top donors, Ted Kellner, said that Wisconsin was spending in the bottom third of the Big Ten. They needed to spend in the top third if we were going to compete the way we wanted to. We don't know what those numbers really are and how much we spent, but it appears as though Wisconsin did drastically elevate their spending. And I think that's showing by the guys that we got on the roster.
Yeah, I really like the additions in here. I think you got a really good mix of guys that, come in with really good production, like you talked about Abu Sama, some of those guys. But then you also have some guys in here with some potential, maybe a little bit of some project to them. And if they don't work out, they don't work out. It is what it is. One of those guys is Malachi Coleman coming in from, Nebraska before, then Minnesota. Doesn't work out at Minnesota. He is obviously very talented. Maybe you get some structure around him with his football career, and maybe he'll turn into something. And then one of my favorite pickups, he's very lowly rated on 3 because he played in D3, and I think you might know who I'm talking about here, Rajiv. Liam Danitz. Man, I like this kid a lot. I talked about him on the show at least 2 or 3 different times. I was convinced he was going to UCLA because they were the first one that was in on him, and so I thought he was going to respect that and go there. He takes the visit to UCLA, doesn't commit. It's like, okay, after the dead period's over, he goes to Wisconsin, commits almost right away. I mean, Luke Fickell must have put a magic spell on him or something, because he committed right away and went there, didn't even go on his other visits. So great pickup by Wisconsin. What are your thoughts on Malachi Coleman and Liam Danitz?
Yeah, I mean, there's potential there. Malachi Coleman, Minnesota. We don't like Minnesota people, but that's okay. Malachi Coleman is just all upside, right? I mean, his athletic ability is there, and that's one thing that Luke Fickell's always prioritized is athleticism. Liam Danitz, man, like I don't have it in front of me, but his tackles for loss numbers last year, I know it's D3, but I think he had like 15 tackles for loss, something absurd. And I mean, his numbers were off the charts. And you see, again, every year you see these guys that when they take that step up in level, they can manage that step up. And I think Liam is going to be a really good player for us. Now, our pass rush, little bit skeptical. Obviously, we lost Mason Reiger, and he's probably going to go get drafted into the NFL. We still have a couple guys on our team, Sebastian Cheeks and Tyrese Fearbury and Nick Clayton. But then getting a guy like Danitz that can be that disruptive in the backfield is exactly what we need. We got other guys too, Jaden Lofton, Justice Boone. There's some decent talent in our edge room. But our defense was a strength for us last year, really was a strength. And we heavily loaded the defensive backfield and to a certain extent our defensive line and edge, in addition to the recruits that we already had. So I think our defense should not take any steps back. It's really on the offensive side. If we can take a step offensively, then all of a sudden our team, the floor really, really goes up. But yeah, a lot of good time. Even a guy like Bryce West from Ohio State, there's another guy that's got a lot of upside. If the cornerback room, measurables are all there. But yeah, there's a lot of guys like that. Even our running back room, our receiver room, there's another guy, like obviously Malachi Coleman you brought up, but Jalen Domingo, Shamar Rigby, a lot of guys that have produced already at the college level and now being able to come in but it's all got to fit together, right? I mean, Jeff Grimes, Luke Fickell, like this is really Luke Fickell's kind of last chance. So Badger fans already were pretty much out on him, myself included. And then as soon as Chris McIntosh said that he was going to stick around, he was going to stay, they were going to invest. Ever since that point, things have been looking up. We performed much better at the end of last year. And then you go out and you put your money where your mouth is, and they brought in this portal haul. And yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty optimistic. I'm more optimistic than a lot of people because most people are like, oh, let's just wait and see what happens. But I really do think this is going to be the big turning point year, a big year for Luke Fickell to actually cement himself as our coach and potentially push things really forward.
Yeah, I mean, you got 2 ranked wins to end the year last year, Washington and Illinois. Those are huge wins for you. And really, it was on the back of the defense, a couple plays there by Carter Smith and a few other guys on the offense that kind of, propelled the offense to be able to score enough to beat those 2 teams and actually scored quite a bit in that Illinois game, more than I think a lot of people anticipated. So they have momentum here right now. And I always said that, it stung for Wisconsin. They won't go into a bowl game, but sometimes you don't go to that bowl game and it's a little bit of an advantage because you can get out there and start working the transfer portal a little bit more. I know nobody likes to talk about how tampering, and I know I'm on a Wisconsin one, tampering, it's the T word. I'm not going to talk about the guy last year, but it's definitely something everybody does in college football, if we're being honest, and it happens. It happens everywhere. So let's talk about the departures. Final thing we'll talk about here, Rajiv. Now, Wisconsin did lose a few guys that went to other programs, bigger type of, not bigger than Wisconsin, but bigger in college football terms, type of programs. Ohio State, Indiana, USC even got their hands on one there. As you mentioned earlier, Preston Zachman, Jake Renfro is going to Illinois, Joe Brunner going to Indiana there, Christian Alliegro going to Ohio State. What's your thoughts on some of these departures? Because I think some people, when the transfer portal was still first kicking off, thought, oh my gosh, Wisconsin's losing all of this top, this old talent that they had. But after listening to you on a few of your shows and also some other Wisconsin people, I think the sentiment is a little bit different than what other people might think. Go ahead and share your thoughts on the departures.
Yeah, I think overall the departures are not that critical. Yes, like losing a guy like Christian Allegro, we'll start with him to Ohio State. You're getting a really good guy. Christian Allegro is a fantastic inside linebacker. The reason that he left is because we've got two freshmen that started last year, the back half of the season, when our defense got really good, and that's Mason Posa and Cooper Catalano. They are incredible talents. Would have loved to have kept Allegro just to have that depth in that room. But that's when we're like, okay, we've kind of got our starters, and Allegro deserves to be starting somewhere or deserves to be playing a lot more. So for him to leave, that's fine. Preston Zachman was the one that really killed me because I've loved Preston Zachman. He's a fantastic, incredibly consistent safety, really good tackler, really good with the ball in the air. He really understands how to read the defense and read the offensive plays. But I think he's gonna be really good at IU, and kudos to him for going there. Brunner didn't have the best year for us last year as an offensive line, but it doesn't surprise me that he's leaving. He wanted to walk out on senior day with the Badgers, even though we knew he had a year of eligibility left. So that was we knew he was leaving. But that's fine. Jake Renfro, I talked to our good old boy Sonny for Illinois, and I was like, we're okay with losing him because his biggest issue is his availability, and he's been hurt constantly. So there's not a ton lost there. Dylan Jones was another big loss. He went to LSU. He was a really, really good, talented running back that, again, was running behind a very poor offensive line last year. But honestly, with Abu Sama, I think we've replaced that production. I really do. And we had a guy, Gideon Atuka, who came in at the end of last year. His health is a little bit in question. Not sure what we're going to see out of him, if at all. But I think we're okay there. But a lot of our losses were just potential and depth pieces in youth that we're okay with leaving because we replaced them in the portal. We did lose Eugene Hilton for a short time at wide receiver, but he came back. So that was a nice big plus for us. Nothing really off the charts. I mean, yes, certainly Brunner, Zachman, Renfro, these guys are like the headlines of it, but it's okay. Like Allegro bothered us, but it's not, we had his replacements already. So we were okay. It all comes down to one position here, and it's quarterback. And if our quarterback is as good as we hope he is, then all of these losses are really just not going to matter because we've pretty much replaced what we've lost. There's no position where we're like, ooh, it's far worse than it was because of who left, right? I mean, Zachman leaving is fine, but Burks came in, and Burks has been a productive safety at Missouri. So we think we're okay with who we lost. But yeah, from a culture perspective, though, really, really tough losing Zachman. I mean, he was out almost the entire year last year after having 2 picks in the first game. But that was tough. And that's one that sticks with me a lot.
Yeah, Zachman, as soon as he went into the portal, I thought, oh my gosh, somebody's going to get a really good safety here, and he's going to be under talked about because of the injury last season. And then, of course, as soon as I saw he went to Indiana, I was like, yeah, okay, no duh. Kirk Cinetti's going to see that, and take that. Thank you. Bring him on over here, and safety position is going to be a-okay at Indiana next season, as long as he can stay healthy. The other one I mentioned was Tucker Ashcraft. Forgot his name there at the very just being honest. Sorry, everybody. But he went to USC. Any thoughts on Ashcraft?
No. I mean, I would have liked to have kept him. He's a good talent, but Lance Mason kind of took over the tight end position last year. He was our portal that we brought in last year. We've got a young guy named Grant Steck who's been playing a lot of snaps at tight end. Ashcraft had a lot of potential as a good receiving threat, but honestly, it's fine. No one's really that upset about it. I would have loved to have kept him. I think he's a good talent, but he can go to USC, and that's okay. I understand why he wants to go to USC. They've got a much more prolific passing game than Wisconsin does. Frankly, I think he had some issues kind of getting open. He's not the most reliable blocking, and you've really got to be able to do both if you're going to play at Wisconsin. And Grant Steck can do that. And I think we got a guy named Jacob Harris who hopefully can add some depth to that room too. But yeah, I mean, not a big loss there. Of all the losses we've had, Zachman and Allegro are the two guys that Badger fans really, really liked and would have been nice to keep them.
For sure. I think Wisconsin would be just fine at the linebacker position without Allegro. Not to disparage Allegro, obviously. I think he's going to be a good player for Ohio State, but you got those young guys behind him. You got to get those guys playing time because you're right. They played really well last season, and I'm looking forward to seeing them again. Any final thoughts on anything with the transfer portal or anything else, Rajiv, before we get done here?
Yeah, I think this is I've been saying this on my show the last couple of weeks. I'm like, this is the one time of year you can really hope. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're just very discouraged by everything that we've seen from Wisconsin football. I totally get that. I'm also discouraged. But I think that the program did what they said they were going to do. They went out and got a quarterback. Knock on wood, he stays healthy. They also got another quarterback in Deuce Adams as well. So we got some depth there. But I think that there's something to be excited about here. And I'm glad that even though I don't necessarily agree with the decision to keep Luke Fickell, I like that the university made a decision. They stood by it. Chris McIntosh came out and said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to keep him. We're going to invest. And they've done exactly that. Every single thing since that point has been what they said they were going to do. So it shows you that things are moving in the right direction. And Wisconsin is a long, storied program that does not belong where we've been in the last couple of years in the conference. And I think it's about to turn back the other direction.
Would love to see it. Wisconsin, like you said, long storied program. I always remember, Big Ten championship games and stuff like that when I was growing up and getting into college and doing that kind of stuff. And they're a great program. And we'll see if Luke Fickell bring him back. If not, I'm sure Wisconsin will go out and make another good head coach hire. But we won't talk about that unless it actually happens. So, Rajiv, thank you so much for being here talking about the transfer portal with us. Again, everybody go check out Rajiv over at the Bucky Report. I listen to them every Sunday evening. If I miss them Sunday evening, they are the first one I listen to on Monday morning because Rajiv and Justin, they do such a great job over there and really do an excellent job of being entertaining as well. So it's not just all the info over there. They're entertaining. They do a good job with that as well. So thank you for listening. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.